Hi, this is Takuma Nakata. I'm an interaction designer based in Kyoto, and welcome to my vvvv beta graphics tutorial. So today is the last episode for the bullet physics tutorial, and in our previous tutorial, so in the first one we followed the basics of how to use bullet inside vvvv and using static bodies and dynamic body. And in the second episode I talked about how to shade those stuffs, and in addition to that I think I also explained a few different interesting tips, and also the workshop material that from Node 17, which is really powerful. So for those who've been following this tutorial, I hope you guys saw that workshop patch, just because there's a lot to learn. In today's tutorial, I'm gonna talk a little bit about extra stuff. So there's a few more nodes that I want to explain, which is interesting, but I mean, it's not really something that I can implement as a tutorial, so I'll keep opening them on the help patch and explain what it does. So let's get started. Yep. Not this one. Not this one. Oh yeah, it's actually here. Okay. So yeah, this is how so if you follow my last tutorial, this should be what you have right now. Just delete these guys. So we got in this point that there's a static body, which is the green one, and then there's dynamic bodies colliding to the green sphere. Just close this one. So whenever you click this, there will be more and more dynamic body generated. So be careful. Right now I have 50 of them. So every time I push, it generates 10 dynamics. But if it goes too high, as I said last time, it gets really heavy, so I wouldn't do that. And then there's also static. This one is the floor, and this one is the floor. So yeah, okay, let's get started. So today first I want to explain about two modules that you should know. One is motion properties. So it's this one, motion properties, and then there should also be dynamics property. So what these two nodes do is can add with motion property. So if you look for the input, it has linear velocity, and then it has angular velocity, and then yeah, it's awake. So what it does is if you connect this one to dynamic body, and then I'll change this one to a box for now, and then a box size will be 0.5, and then I'm sending this here, so this one should be box as well. So I add this one, and then let's see what happens. So right now they're spinning and hitting to each other, right? So this is basically, in default, it's like this. What happens if I add angular velocity is 1? I kind of see the change. Okay, let's change this one to not only y, but all of them to 1. So I'll just right click here and press 1. Okay, now everything is checked. I'll reset everything and do create. Let's see. It might be a bit hard to see what's happening here, but sort of I think it's kind of spinning a bit faster than it used to be. Let's see what happens if I add 2 for linear velocity. Something happened. Okay, right now you can see, so whenever it gets emitted, there's a linear velocity happening when it emits. So after that it's gone, but in default there's this booming thing that goes to y-axis. So if you add, for example, 2 to the x-axis, then what it does, it goes that way, but it only applies in the beginning. But this is pretty cool. And then what happens if I add dynamic properties? So I'll just move this guy here, and then I'll add dynamic properties. So this goes beside motion properties, and what it has friction and restitution, and I'm not sure what they are. Okay, this one is the one that I was looking for. So what happens if I add 1 to rolling? Oh well, let's see what happens in default. So it's like this. I don't like going to y-axis. I'll just put x-axis. And I'll change this to 1 and let's see what happens. Not a big difference. Okay, why is that? Is active. Let's see with the others. So I'll add 1 to friction then and reset everything. It's kind of hard to see. Let's see what happens with restriction. Maybe I'll just remove this one and see what happens. I thought it happens when they hit each other. So right now, because dynamics bodies are not hitting to each other, maybe it's not happening. But what it should do is like it should add friction and restitution and rolling friction to each other. So whenever they hit, it changes the way they hit. But right now I'm not really seeing anything. There might be a change, but I'm not sure. Maybe you can test it in your side and see if it works, but it should definitely work. So I would recommend trying it on your own. So these are the ways that you can add like different parameters to dynamic body. But what if you want the gravity to change? Like right now the default is minus 0.8, but for example, we can also add like a static velocity to it. How to do so? We need to do set velocity. So there's a node called set velocity, and then we click this one. There's only one of them, and then we can connect this guy here. And then there's this linear velocity as what we saw right here. But let's see what happens if we add 1 to here. And then be careful with the set velocity thing. Set linear velocity is in default off. So I'll just press on. Then let's see what happens. Okay, so right now this guy has his own velocity parameters. So I think right now it's kind of like okay, so it has them both, I guess. So yeah, because it's going to minus, but it's also very slow. If I put this one to 0, or if I make it off, then it goes down really fast. But if I add 1 to it, what happens is, oh, it goes up and then it goes down. So you can play with the gravity after everything is emitted. So with this, you can sort of like make superpower thing. Like for example, if you have your lip motion hand going down, then the gravity is low. But then if you want this to go up and down again, does it work? If I set it off, it does, right? Yeah. Okay, so this one is, you can change it like after everything is done. So I mean, we can change this one as well. Let's just put this on. This one is also changeable while everything is simulated. But with this one, you can actually set different parameters for different dynamic bodies. For example, if you want a cube with a stronger gravity, but then if you want to have a sphere with less gravity, then you can use this to set that kind of stuff. So this set velocity node is very useful. And then I'll introduce another one, which is called SetPose, which is this one. There should only be one of them. And then this one I'll connect this one to create static body because it's more visible. So right now with the static body, once it's located, we can't really change, right? Like here, if we change this, oh no, we have to set pose. So there's a pose node to set the location. Oh no, this one is the floor. Sorry, it should be here. So we already set the pose, right? Okay, so once it's emitted, these guys, we can't move in, right? But I just changed the parameter, so if we reset it, it changed. But with this SetPose node, I'll just delete these guys, and then I'll SetPose, and then I'll add pose, and then I'll put it here, and then I'll make this apply. What it does is it allows us to change the position while simulation is happening. So let's see what happens. So I can actually make this static body collide as I'm moving it, and so for some reason the floor is gone. Why is that? That is strange. It's probably because that is very strange. Let's see what happens if I turn this off. We don't have a floor anymore. Huh. Oh yeah, that's because of this. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Okay, now we have a floor, so it wasn't because of this. So now, let's see again. So I emitted a several amount of particles, boxes, and now I can change it. It's colliding to the floor and the moving object. With this, you can make, like, I don't know, again, with leap motion, with your body tracking. For example, if you use Kinect and you have yourself moving, you can still connect Kinect parameter here and then let these your body collide to simulated boxes, which is quite interesting, I guess. Why is it shaking? Okay, whatever. So with this, you can actually make these guys play around, which is quite interesting. So yeah, as you see, because it's all in real time, this kind of stuff is actually possible in vvvv, which is quite powerful, I guess. So I wanted to introduce these nodes. So motion properties, dynamics properties, set velocity, and SetPose. And I think there's another one. Yeah, okay. So the third one is set point to point pivot. So I'm not gonna explain about this one, but point to point is actually an interesting node. So I'll talk about this one a little bit. So what it does is I'll just click it and I'll press F1 and see what it does. So with this, it's quite interesting. I'm not going to explain this though. What it does, you can set like a central position. So it's sort of like a rope. So it's connected to, like, I don't know if you see it. I just add a cursor here. Then I need a mouse. Window. Needs a mouse state. Okay. So I don't know if you see it, but right here there is a, so this is the central position, which is this anchor position. So I'll just put this back to 0 and then reset everything. So now it's in the center of this renderer. I'll put it 3, and so now it's lower a little bit. So by using this, you can actually make these boxes or whatever spheres like stay to the central. So if you want these guys to like float, don't go too far, just keep floating around certain object, and you can set this point to point. You can use this point to point node to let it work like that. So it's quite a handy. This one is also a handy node. There's a point to point single and there's point to point double. With double, there's different, it acts in a different way. If you're interested, I suggest you to open up the help patch, because with this bullet node, they all have help patch, so it's really easy to learn. Yeah, I think that's kind of it with what I wanted to explain with this tutorial. So in last, I'll just do something addition to make the visual that I was showing for the background image. So from now it's going to be quite boring, but let's just keep doing it. So what I'll do is I'll open up the workshop patch, and as I said, one of my favorite node is magnet, and the spherical force, because I'm too lazy to recreate this one. So I just drag and drop spherical force, and then I'll type get body. No, what was it? So there's this special node I get. Shit, I'm always used to opening up this patch, so I'll just copy and paste from here. So as you see here, this is one of my favorite, and I've been following this workshop patch for long. So I just copy this one and then bring it back here. Because I want to apply it now. What happened? Reset and do create everything. I'll just delete this one, and reset and do create. Right now something is too high. I think it's the friction. So it's acting really weird. What the hell is happening here? 0.8. Something is wrong. Let's see what's wrong. To create. I'll just delete this motion property and dynamics property because I don't need it right now. It's still rolling like crazy. Yeah, I'll just use sphere for this one. And then I'll change this one to sphere as well. Let's see what happens. Okay, right now, okay, this looks better. So I think the box has this weird thingy. So now this is something similar to what I want. And then I don't need a floor for this one, so I'll delete the floor. And then I don't need 3 green spheres, so I'll add just 1. And then what I'll do is I'll locate this guy a bit higher, and then tell him the center is where the spheres are. And then here you go. So this is what I basically did with the image that I shared for my background. Like when I start this tutorial, there's this image that is always showing up. And what I basically did is this. So I added different ones, and then I also did a random sphere. And then I need 3 scale, but I'll divide this one with 3, random spread, and then I'll connect it here so that it has different sizes. Okay, it looks better. And I also want this body. I want to shade this one as well, so I'll create a new send node, and then let's just name it static, and I'll connect this guy here. And then I'll copy paste this guy, and then I'll connect it to, I don't need the debug draw anymore, so I'll reconnect this guy. No debug draw. Oh wait, I'll have the debug draw. I don't need the axis and grid, so I'll delete that one. And then I'll connect, this one is here, and then this one is here. And then I don't need the sphere radius, I just need to connect this guy, so I'll put it here. And then this one is not the body, it's the static. So, and then I'll set this one to 2. Then let's see what happens. Okay, so right now, somewhere far high, somewhere high, and then when I do create, okay, now we have more. Oh, and I think the depth buffer, okay, so depth was on off. Okay, so like this is how I made that visual that I was showing for the background image. So it basically does kind of like the movement that I really want. So now the sphere, static sphere, is filled with small spheres. This looks better. Okay, so okay, so by this you can actually do quite a lot. I mean, I'm kind of like addicted to this spherical force, so I've been using this a lot. But I'm also thinking do some character animation thing inside it. You can use BVH node. This one is maybe if you follow my first character animation tutorial inside VV, then you might also be interested in this one. What it does, you can import a 3D object, and then this BVH node changes to like a mesh that you can read inside Bullet. So by using this, you might be able to import a character animation with a collider, but I don't know if this guy supports character body animation. I couldn't figure out how to do that one, so I gave up. But if you're interested in importing 3D objects, this BVH node is definitely the one you should use. But if you want to use a character animation with collision, then convexhull is the node I guess you should use. And I'm not going to explain this one because I only have 1 minute left. But what it does is okay, so what it does is there's a random, so in this patch there's this random spread, and what convexhull does, it it only gets the most outside vertex and creates a mesh out of it. So by using this, for example, if you have a moving body and you know where all the joints are, just put those joint position to here, and then you should be able to get a character animated, like animated collision. But right now, this convexhull thing is not working in real time, but there should be a way to let it work in real. Oh shit! No. There might be a way to make it work in real time. So if you're interested in doing that, and if you figure out how to make it work, please let me know. I'm also interested in doing that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, that was it for today. And thank you for following my bullet tutorial. With next one, I haven't planned what to do, but I'll release that next Tuesday. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.